this engine was first, we know from shipping records at the University of Evansville, that it was put on a rail car in January of 1922. It was presumably shipped by rail to Martinsville. We don't know how it got to the farm at William Gallatin's. He was my grandfather and the original owner. In that was a water pumping engine on the creek bank. This one was. I was told that William Gallatin had run 2 pipes up the hill through a culvert under the road into a copper-lined water tank that was to the right-hand side of the barn gate where the barn used to be. When the water tank was filled, overflows went to the stock tanks, which filled those, and they would be turned off with float valves. When the water tank then overflowed, it went through another pipe back down the hill to the house, and another pipe which pressurized the house, so they had running water in the home. And the other end of that pipe went to Grandma's garden. So when she saw her garden being irrigated, she knew that the main tank had been filled and flushed, the stock tanks were filled and flushed, and that her garden had been irrigated, and then she could turn off the engine. Aunt Mildred and my mother Edith, that would be Harold's generation, sisters to Harold, their memories of this engine, and one similar, because I think William Gallatin had more than one, were running a washing machine. The engine and Mildred are only months apart in age. It was located on the creek bank south of the mill room. It's gone now, it's lost to erosion. The site, 100 and some feet of that land is now gone and lost to the river. But it was under a shed that had collapsed to the ground. As a little boy, I was told to stay out of there because there was a big king snake in there waiting to get me, and I crawled in anyway. I remembered broken gears and a busted piston. It was disassembled. Subsequently, in the early 70s, Harold Gallatin rescued that engine and rebuilt it. He took it to one of his residences in Wisconsin prior to when he lived in Beaver Dam, and he bought, I know from receipts that I have, that he bought 3 brand new spur gears in 1974. I know that he had the cylinders sleeved, and we know that he bought a piston. Presumably he machined it himself. He built the engine not at all to original specs, but to make it run, and it does very well still. Subsequent to Harold's passing, Ruth Bach, one of Harold's daughters, mailed me what we have here is the original operation parts manual for this engine. She mailed it September 16th, 1999. There's reprints for these available, but the operation of Harold's engine is much unlike the book. If you use the book settings for power settings and adjustments, it will not run. The meter I'm holding is one of 6 electric meters. This one's a voltmeter that Harold used in his power plant in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. I have one of these, 1 voltmeter similar, exactly the same as this one, on the display now to show an increase in voltage. What I do with the display, I'm convinced that Harold did many years prior when he tested his theory of an induction wound motor generating. I had looked at the V-belt pulley that he had installed on the engine, and knowing the engine RPM and diameter, it was obvious that he had belted an induction wound, small induction wound motor to that engine to test his generator theory. And that's what I'm doing at engine shows for the last 12 years or so now. When an induction wound motor is energized and then sped 10% faster than its operating RPM, it becomes a generator. On my displays, you'll see in the video, and it's hard to see, but I'll get 1.5 to sometimes 2 volts above the grid voltage. The electric meter will stop and reverse, and we're putting power back into the grid. I do that, well, mostly just to see if I can.